So 8 years ago, just before I turned 40, I noticed some weakness down my right arm and leg and went to the GP. He said, "What do you think is wrong with you?" And I said, "I think I've got MS." And he said, maybe, which is not really what I wanted to hear. He sent me off for an MRI. And then the night before the Anzac Day long weekend, which was, I think it was later that day, he called me to say, "Well, we don't think it's a brain tumour." I'm like, "What?" He said, "I've spoken to the neurosurgeon and we don't think it's a brain tumour. We think there's a mass on your brain and you're going to need some more investigations." So that began a series of tests. I think I had a spinal tap, another MRI, and essentially, cutting a long story short, I was diagnosed with what is called a single episode of demyelination. Now, demyelination is when the myelin sheath that protects the nerves is eroded away, and it's another autoimmune condition. So, the body is attacking that myelin sheath, and then communication doesn't get passed properly through the nervous system. And if you have multiple episodes of this demyelination or multiple lesions, perhaps in your brain or down your spine, then you're normally diagnosed with MS. So I guess my gut feeling was sort of right, although it turns out that I haven't had any further episodes. So the official diagnosis was and remains a single episode of demyelination. But as you can imagine, 8 years ago, when I was looking down that pathway of developing MS and all the implications that may have had for me, was pretty daunting. It was a very scary period of my life. I had a lot of prayer. I had a lot of other people who had that faith for me that I would get better, and I did. And so over that, when I first saw the neurologist, he recommended that I went on some steroids to help reduce that inflammation. And but I wasn't really keen for the steroids. I know that steroids have significant side effects, and so I said to him, "Look, do I have to go on the medication?" And he said, "Well, no, but we do recommend it." Then he gave me an appointment, some information to contact one of the nurses at the hospital to talk about that treatment. Well, I just went home and I decided not to proceed with that treatment with the steroids. I figured, well, I was already on the pathway to following an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, but I just really started taking it more seriously. For me, that was a wake-up call that it didn't really matter if I was skinny anymore. I'd had a very much a weight-focused approach, even to the dietary changes I'd made at that point for my thyroid. But I thought, I just have to be healthy. I just have to be able to walk up my stairs. I have to avoid being in a wheelchair. And so I just took more seriously that anti-inflammatory approach to my life. And I've had regular checkups. I think it started off at 6 monthly, went to annually. Now it's 18 monthly MRIs and appointments with the neurologist just to check in, see if there's any other changes. And every year I go back, or every 18 months now, it's 18 months, but I saw the neurologist today, and he says, I'm a bit puzzled. Today, before I even got into his room, he said, "Right, there's no new lesions. I've shown your MRI to the head of the MS department here, and because you have never gone on any the steroids or preventative medication, and so I don't know. I think they're a bit confused. What do they do with me?" And I say, "Yeah, but," and I've said this, every appointment over the last 8 years. "Yes, but I haven't sat back and done nothing. Like, I take a very proactive approach to my health. I follow an anti-inflammatory diet. Like, I've talked over the years about all the different things that I've done. I take vitamin D. I mean, really, if you're following me here on my thyroid journey, everything I really do is all about essentially reducing stress and inflammatory load on my system. And so that accounts for the brain lesion as well. So I guess we had another conversation. He said, a little bit like I'm a bit puzzled. Well, because I'm not a normal situation, I think. I think most people go on the preventative medication, which of course has its own risks. I had been a bit confused, and I think I've said in the past that I would have been on steroids for the whole 8 years, and that he clarified today that wasn't the case. He said you would have gone on steroids initially in that acute phase to reduce the inflammation, and then gone on one of the many preventative pharmaceutical options, which the drug companies push the preventative path fairly proactively, from what I can gather. But as he said, like, the preventative medication can have side effects like autoimmune conditions and links to cancer. And, I said, well, I don't really want to go on preventative medication. I don't feel like I need it. He certainly wasn't pushing it on me at all. He said, well, yeah, I think you just keep on doing what you're doing, keep on taking the vitamin D, keep on keeping your brain active, because that was what the MS professor, the professor at the hospital, who I gather was the head of the MS department, said, well, how's her cognitive function? Like, without being on these preventative medications, which can apparently impact brain atrophy and cognitive function. So he says, how's your cognitive function? I said, well, I'm not really sure if I'm the best judge for my personal cognitive function. What do you mean? He said, well, are you thinking? What do you do? I said, well, I don't know, I host a podcast. I've just written a book. I think things through. I'm just sitting around watching Netflix all day. I said, I don't have brain fog. I think pretty clearly. I don't feel like I'm in cognitive decline or that my brain is atrophying, but perhaps I'm not the best judge for that. So he said, because that's what the latest lot of preventative medication is around, preventing brain atrophy. And apparently in the research now, they can compare brain scans over time to see if the brain is atrophying at a faster rate than normal, which apparently is common with MS. He's put me down for another scan in another 18 months. He said, whilst normally they don't check for that, we'll try to check for that. I said, well, hopefully my brain won't atrophy in the next 18 months any more than it does apparently with normal aging. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep living my anti-inflammatory life. I'm going to keep taking that approach to my health. I'm going to continue being proactive. I am very grateful for all the prayers that I received. I believe that is faith plus action, that I've been healed, and I continue to work out that healing in the way I approach my health. So I hope that this story encourages you. Obviously, things can happen down the track, and I'll always weigh up those different management options if things change down the track. But for now, I'm grateful that hasn't developed into anything. I'm grateful for all the practical tools that I have with my diet and lifestyle in order to manage my health proactively. I'm still on my thyroid medication, so that's okay. But I think, if you followed for a while, I'm certainly not anti-medication, but I was hesitant to go on the steroids and preventative medication for the brain lesion. And, I feel grateful that I didn't do that, and I guess the proof has been in the pudding. So hope this encourages you today. Just wanted to share my good news and say keep going, because these things, they're simple, they're not easy, but they can have a massive difference on your health. So have an awesome day.